Hi, my name is George. I'm the founder of ApproveThis, and today we're going to be walking through the full application, looking at everything that ApproveThis can do. If you're looking for more of a highlight reel, we have a faster version on our YouTube channel, so you can check it out. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. So this is our dashboard. We'll get started on our tour today. You can see that we've got three main views: dashboard, my approvals, my requests, and then a set of approval workflows. So as you might expect, the dashboard shows all of our workflows and some statistics about each one. Different permission levels see different things. So for example, a user would only see the things that they have to act upon and could only create new requests, whereas a manager would see the additional statistics. We'll cover permissions in a little bit. My approvals shows the items that people are waiting on me to approve. So what's out there, what's pending. I can look at just the last 24 hours, or I can look at all time, and I can see what's pending, what's approved. I can filter by any different status as well. I can also quick approve or quick deny items directly from this page. Similarly, my requests shows the items that I've requested and I'm waiting for people to approve. So I have both the view of everything that is waiting for approval. And then on the right hand side, I have my workflows again and the ability to directly create approvals or requests rather. So if I want to use this office parties request, I can click that and fill out the form to have an office party right in a modal inside the application. And that's probably a good segue to start talking about the different types of approval workflows that ApproveThis can manage. Approval workflows can be of a few different kinds. They can be a form workflow, where a workflow begins by filling out a form and then sending that information off to a person or a series of people or a group of people for approvals. It can also be triggered by mailbox. So you can set up a special email address that folks can email information into, triggering an approval process. And then the last kind is an integration where you can send a webhook or a Zapier message to approve this for handling that way. The webhooks and Zapier tools we're going to be covering in a different video available on our YouTube channel. So for now, let's go ahead and create a form. We can create this form by starting with a blank form. We can choose from one of our templates in the form library. So there's about 150 different options here. Everything from things like expenses to vacation requests to just about anything that folks had used ApproveThis for in the past. But in our case, maybe we have a special use. We'll use our AI form generator and have the system generate a beginning of a form for us. So I will do expense pre authorization for special projects, both vague and specific at the same time. This takes 10 to 15 seconds to come back. It'll just give us, like I said, a starting point. So we have a project name, a requester name and email, a department, an expense amount, a date needed by, and a justification for expense, and whether approval is needed from a department head. Some of these make perfect sense for us. Maybe some of them don't. You can see there's the data type. Some of them are text. Some of them are email, currency. We can edit all this on the next page. Again, this is just a place to get started. So let's go ahead and hit create and customize and take a look at what's been created for us. Now we're on our form editor. And all of the things that we just saw are right here. So the project name, the requester email, department, and so on and so forth. On the right-hand side, we have a preview of what the form will look like for our users. And you can look at that preview in both the desktop version and a mobile version. We also have a way to look at the different screens that we can edit here. So we have right now a form and then a confirmation page. This is what the users will see uh, after they submit a request. And we can edit everything like that. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. We can also create a welcome page, which appears before a user begins a request. This is a great place to put instructions or who should be filling out the form, who shouldn't. I'm sure you can imagine things that might be useful for this screen here. And again, that's all customizable. So I can change all this text here and say only authorized people should fill out this form. And then that message will be available for our users when they start to fill out a request. For now, though, I'm going to turn the welcome page off and we'll dive right into the name and instructions. So the name and instructions is the area that appears on the top of our form. So we've got the name, expense pre-authorization for special projects, only use for special projects within the widget division. Maybe that's necessary for people, and don't fill out before all information is gathered. You can, of course, put anything up in this area here. You can style this text. You can make it maybe super passive aggressive by making things bold and italic or underlined or whatever you need to do can, of course, be done in this view. Down below the name and instructions section, we have our fields. So these fields are, again, just the ones that our AI tool created. You can sort these fields and move them around as necessary. And in this case, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup because since maybe this form is for internal use, the requester name and email are just going to be the logged in users. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those, which makes our form just a little bit simpler. Now, if I wanted to make this form available for external users, maybe I'd keep that so that people could fill in their own name and information. And we'll show you how to adjust the permissions for who can create a request in just a moment. For now, we have again project name, department, expenses, and of course, inside expenses. And inside all these fields, we have a variety of different settings. So for a currency field, of course, we can set our field to any currency. And then we can also do things like make the field required or not required based on what our needs are. We can change the question, so what we're actually asking. So maybe I'll delete the dollar sign there. Estimated expense amount. Maybe I don't want the estimate. Maybe I want the final expense amount. So I can change what the question actually says. And I can also put help text below that field. So I can say, hey, maybe we only want to get that expense amount when it's already confirmed by accounting. And so I can add that helpful information down below the field. And then that'll appear, as you can see on the preview right below. Just want to take a look at a couple other different field types here. So you can see on dates, this will verify that it's actually a date coming into our system. You can also make some of this information private. Now, what does private mean? Private means that it's used internally. So it's information that you'll still collect on the form, but it won't be information that's available inside the UI to non-administrators. So the best use case for this is if you have maybe contact information that you don't want going out to everyone in an approval workflow, you can still collect that contact information and you can just hide it. So it's not available for everybody. You can see when I click that form there, uh, the private field shows up. I have both text, which are single fields, as well as text boxes. So this is the justification is a text box, which is of course a longer field, and then check boxes as well. I also have a variety of other different kinds of fields, everything from numbers to email addresses, which will validate that a field is actually an email address, to a phone number, to a file upload. And the file upload is the last thing they'll actually be adding to this form. So we'll click on file upload, and this one has some special options that we want to go over. So first, we can of course make sure that it's required if we want it to be required. And then under settings, we have our file preview settings. Now, by default, when you upload a file into ApproveThis, inside the requests and inside the notifications, which we'll look at in just a moment, you'll just get a download link for that file. But for some types of files, like images, PDFs, and spreadsheets, you have the capability to embed that data directly inside the notification. So in this case, I will put that I want to show both images and PDFs inside the application. So inside the email notifications and inside the UI. Now, this makes it really easy if you're passing images or PDFs back and forth for an approver to preview that file without having to download it and open it on their own system. So when you're looking at making sure the approvers have the easiest, fastest experience possible, this is just one of the things we do to make that really straightforward. The last thing available is data extraction. We'll cover data extraction separately at the very end of the video. Now that we've got a form that's looking pretty good, we'll go ahead and look at a couple options for the form. We can change our fonts and our colors and our logo on the form. In this case, we're using the team logo, but we can also have a special logo just for this form. We could do things like adjust the position, the border radius of the cards, just to make it look a little bit more like your brand. Now we can look at the form settings, and there's just two here to know about. The first one is to make the form publicly accessible and allow public submissions. We'll talk about how to build a public form hub later on in the video. But for now, clicking this button allows anyone on the internet to access this form and submit an approval request that will go through your workflow. The second one works closely with that one, which is to require a PIN to access the form. So you can set a PIN, a numeric or alphanumeric PIN that a user would need to know to access the form. So oftentimes folks will allow public submissions, but also require a PIN to access that form if they don't want really anyone on the internet to be able to submit a request. Up at the top of this workflow page, we have requests, form, workflow, activity, and settings. We started on the form page. Now we'll go over to requests. This is how you will view the requests that are pending, approved, or denied. And you can view those in a Kanban, so a column with cards view here. You can also view them in a table. And let's go ahead and create an item so we can see what it looks like. So I'm going to create a new request, and the form that we just created is right available here. So the project name in this case is the widget project. The department is special projects. The amount is $100. The date needed by is the 22nd. Justification for expense. We'll put something like necessary to proceed, which I hope wouldn't be good enough for any business, but it's good enough for now. Approval from department head. And then we'll go ahead and upload a file, which in this case, we'll just upload a picture of our pricing table. All right, you can see here in our form, we have a preview of that file, and we'll hit submit to kick off that workflow. And we can see that it's been submitted successfully. So we'll close the window. So now we can see a few different things. First, we see that this widget request that we just sent in has already been approved. Now, why is that? Well, it's because we haven't set up any approvers yet. So in just a moment, we'll show you how to do that. But let's go ahead and click in and see how the form flows through. You can see that all the information we filled out of the form is available here in a very simple to monitor way. And because we turned on image previews, we see the image that we uploaded directly in the request. Now, I mentioned that it was automatically approved, and that's because there are no approvals. It was requested by Michael Scott, since Michael Scott is the logged in user, and all approvers approved because there weren't any. Let's go back and fix that. So the second major part of the application is the workflow builder. That's the third tab here. So you can see the start is the form. Now let's go ahead and add an approver or two to make sure this works the way we want it to. The simplest way to add an approver is by selecting one that already exists in my application. So here are all the approvers that I've already set up as users in my application. But one of the most powerful things about ApproveThis is that you can actually set up approvers that aren't in your application. So you can send very easily approvers to folks who don't work in your application, are too busy to set up an account, that maybe this is the only time they'll ever approve something for you. So let's try that as an example. I'll just create a new test user. My test domain here. And you can see that I don't have any users named that, but I have the option right here in line to invite a new user. And when I click invite a new user, I have the ability to create a user with a first name and a last name, and I can choose whether or not this is an external approver, one that doesn't need a approve this account, or if I want to invite them as a new team member. Now, in this case, I'll keep them as an external approver, but keep in mind that seats and approve this are free. Our pricing models are based only on the volume of approvals that are submitted. So really, either way has no cost impact. It's just a matter of whether we want the person or the person wants that we're sending an approval to access the dashboard, to view things in the application, or that we just want them to access things through email notifications. So I'll go ahead and hit Add Approver, and we can see that that approver will be added into our workflow. Now I'm going to go ahead in the same area and add some other approvers inside the application. Maybe we want Andy Bernard to be an approver, and that then creates our first approval step. Of course, with ApproveThis, you have the capability to set up multi-stage approvals. So let's go ahead and set up a second stage and investigate the rest of the parts of this application. You can set up a stage below the first one. And instead of setting up a single approver, this time we'll use an approver group to demonstrate that feature. So down at the bottom here, we've got our approval groups. We've got one set up for reception, for sales, party planning committee. We've also got one for accounting. That seems appropriate for this use. So we'll click on accounting here. And now the accounting group is an approver on this step. Now, what is an approval group? Let's go take a look at them. Down here in our workspace menu, we have a special place for approval groups. And we click on that, we see all the groups that we were just looking at in that drop down menu, everything from party planning to accounting. So we can create new groups here, and we can also edit the existing groups. Here they are. Angela, Kevin, and Oscar are all part of the accounting group. We can add more of our users here as well if necessary. Now, an approval group works when any one of these people approves. This step will be considered complete. So if we go back here, and again, it's Angela, Kevin, and Oscar, we'll go back and look at our workflow in progress. For this step, if Angela, Oscar, or Angela, Oscar, or Kevin, whoever the last person was, if any of them approve, then this step will be complete. Compare that to these two up here, our test user and Andy Bernard. For these two, both of them would need to approve for it to be complete. So that's the difference between a group where anyone in the group can approve versus listing multiple approvers on the same step. Of course, instead of just having sequential approvers where it goes from step one to step two, you can also trigger steps that go sideways as well. So in this case, we'll say maybe Michael needs to be an approver that reviews at the same time as accounting. And so we'll use Michael here and hit close. And now Michael and accounting will both receive things at the same time. And their respective steps won't complete until all users inside this box have completed their approvals. Speaking of which, there's one more piece of this function that we should look at, and that's to configure a threshold. So I've gone back in to edit this step with Michael Scott, and we'll look at the conditions for approval. Now, you may recall when we set up the form, we set a dollar amount. And so maybe we only need Michael to approve when a dollar amount's been exceeded. So in that case, we could go back and find the amount. And we could say, hey, we only want to approve when that amount is greater than $50 and add that condition. We can add as many conditions as we like, and then this step will only be required when that condition is met, and it will auto approve if it's not met. So it won't go out and this step will be skipped entirely, allowing the whole workflow to complete without completing that step. That is a workflow setup. And so now we can go back to requests and we'll submit a new request and walk through both what the workflow looks like, and I'll show you the notifications for that workflow as well. So let's do widget two. We'll just fill out some very simple form fields for each of these. We think the amount is going to be $70 this time, and it's needed by 31st of 2026. And the justification is more widgets or new project will require approval. And then again, we'll upload a screenshot of, let's use an old outdated pricing table, just to give us a picture to look at. And we'll hit submit. And now that's going to go through the approval process and we can see what that looks like. Now that it's been submitted, we can close the modal and go back to our requests here and see that that little ding you may have just heard was us receiving our notifications. We can see that the first step is out for approval. So we can click into that and see that for our first step, there's a request, the information we just filled out, and both Andy and our test user are up waiting for an approval here. So what we'll do is we have a email box here, and I can access everyone's email in this one Outlook email box. So the first thing I'll show you is what it looks like from the person who submitted the request. So I'm in Michael's email box, and it shows, hey, you've submitted a request for approval. Here's all the information. And again, back when we created the form, we said we do want to preview images. So we've got a preview of the image right here, as well as the ability to download that image with a secure link. That secure link lasts 14 days of the request being submitted. Now, the other person we sent to was Andy Bernard. So let's go look at Andy's inbox. And here you can see that's the same information, but this time from Andy's perspective, you've received a request for approval. Here's all the information. And at the bottom, they have the ability to approve, deny, or view the request. Now, in this case, let's say that we want to approve the request. And so I can just hit approve. Now, the nice thing about this is that because of the way this application is set up, there's no login required. I can configure it so that login is required for items that require more security. But in Andy's case, we just wanted him to approve it right away. We'll talk about how to configure that in just a moment. I'm going to go back now to our request, and we will see that Andy's step is now complete. Now, our test user gives us a bit of an interesting problem because maybe that email didn't go anywhere. Maybe the user isn't responding. And because I'm an administrator on that account, I can approve on his behalf. So Michael Scott being the owner, and that's who I'm logged in as, I can go and I can say, hey, this is, we're waiting for approval still. It's waiting for test user. But since I'm an administrator, I can approve on his behalf. And that'll be logged that I did it on his behalf and he didn't approve it directly himself. Now, the moment that Michael Scott approved those items, we can see it went to the next two. That's that branching view. It went to both accounting and to Michael at the same time. So we've gone through the first step, and now we're on the second and third steps, which both went out at the same time. And we can go back and look at the different people that received that. I believe it was Kevin. So Kevin received that same message. This time we'll hit view request. And that takes us to this page. Now, in this instance, I'm still logged in as Michael, but we can go ahead and approve that request. And you can see that the accounting has now, that step has been completed. So we have all these items completed here. And then from a notification perspective, we have a notification of who's approved and what's going on with that request. So Michael's receiving updates as it approves and goes to the next person. And we just have one approval left. If we go back, it's still waiting on Michael's approval. And the reason that happened is because it's more than $50, right? So I want to take a moment and just quickly show you. We do have an audit log here of all the things that have happened with this request. And we can see that this approval is required because the threshold of $70 is greater than $50. So if you're ever trying to back into why an approval triggered, you can go into the activity log and see very directly why that occurred. And again, that was on the request and then the activity log button right here. On this page, we see that that one last approval is still waiting. So we'll go ahead and go in and approve it and hit approve. And we'll hear another ding that email has been received because now the request is fully complete. So we finished all the approval steps and is now approved. And then all of the people involved in that approval have also received that notification. All right, so that's what the notifications look like. And we've seen the UI inside. Let's take a look at a couple other items that can make this experience even better for your users. So to do that, we're going to be taking a look at the settings in a workflow. So first you have the flow name, which is used here in the menu. You have a description of the workflow. You have the status, whether or not the workflow can accept new items or not. So that will turn the form on and off. You have the comments, which is the ability to let people comment on a form. So if I go over to a request with comments on, you can see that I can allow folks to comment. We can change the owner of the workflow. We can also look at request naming. So, request naming is one of the most important parts of the settings process because we can change what the requests are called inside the settings page. So, in this case, we can make it any combination of the fields that exist inside the application. This is an autocomplete form, so I can just type double bracket and get all of the different possibilities, all the different fields inside the form to use them inside the name of the request. I can also go in and generate suggestions. So if I want to change to a different name, this will generate some possible suggestions that I can use instead of just the name of a certain field. So I can use the project name combined with the owner's name, combined with what date it's needed. I can use the project name and then the person who submitted the request. I think you get the idea here, and you can go select one of these and save it. Under the security tab, we just have a couple options. The first one is to require approver login. So this makes the one-click approvals from email require both a click and a login. People would be required to log in before they can approve or deny something instead of just hitting the link in their email or other notification. The second is guest approver access. This allows people to use the show request button in their email notification to actually view details about a request. And then link expiration, this changes how many days those links in emails are good for. So you can send out a link and say, hey, this is only good for 7 days to view internal information if it's going to an external user. Finally, the notifications tab allows you to set watchers for a workflow. So this allows you to watch a workflow yourself and get notifications when it's been submitted and when it's complete. It also allows you to add other members of your team if you're an administrator. So if we needed, for example, uh, Angela or Kevin or anyone else here to watch what happens inside the workflow, but not necessarily be one of the approvers or requesters. This allows a watcher of anything that occurs inside this approval workflow. And lastly, approval reminders. So you can set to send a reminder for approvers to visit the approval every 3 days until it's approved. You can set a maximum number of reminders you send. You can do it daily, you can do it weekly, and then you can also choose to stop after a certain period of time. This is an either or, so this will send daily up to 3 times or stop after 30 days, whichever occurs first. The last tab we haven't covered yet is the activity page. And this, of course, shows all the things that were created, updated, and deleted over the course of the work that we've just been doing, and links you to each of the items that was worked on. And then over at the requests page, the activity is what happened, and the requests is what was actually submitted. So you can see that we submitted the two items, how they were filled out, what the uploads were. Both of these tables are exportable both to CSV and Excel. The next item we're going to look at is file processing. So this is a special feature specifically for PDF uploads. It's great for receipts or invoices. And in this case, we'll use it directly for our expense pre-authorization workflow. Let's go ahead and make some changes to our form to make it work here. So we have, in this instance, our file upload. So if you can see, there's a content with the question on it. You can add help text. There's a settings tab. And earlier in the settings tab, we flipped these on so that we can see previews of files. And again, you can do spreadsheets as well. So it'll open the Excel file and will show you a portion of the spreadsheet, the first 50 rows or the first 20 rows in your spreadsheets, in your emails, and your web notifications. And the last item here is data extractor. So data extractors take PDFs and look at them and extract important data out into structured information that you can then process. So I'm going to show you a invoice example. And the other thing I'm going to do, because we're using a data extractor, is we're going to go into files here. And here I can set what the maximum file size is. And I can also set what type of files I want to accept. Because I'm going to process these as invoices, I want to say, hey, I want them to be documents only. So I want these file types to be accepted. And in fact, I'm even going to take a couple of these out because maybe I only want to accept, I don't want to accept PowerPoints, right? I don't want to accept the spreadsheets here. I really just want to accept PDFs. So I can see everything out but PDFs there, but I can be flexible. I can have as many or as few as I want. And let's not worry about file size, but I could also have a file size there as well. So now I've taken this files and I've changed it so that it both has a data extractor of invoice. So it'll look for a type of pattern that looks like an invoice. And I've made it to only PDFs will upload. Let's take a look at what that does when I submit a new request. But before that, let's add some help text to help our users out and say, must be PDF format. Now, if they try to submit something wrong, it'll show a validation message, but if we give them some help text in advance, it will also be useful for them. All right. Now we'll go back to the requests tab and we'll create a new request. So here's that same old form. And this time we're going to maybe submit a request for Salesforce training, and that'll come from the HR budget. The expense amount will be, let's say, $4,000. Date needed will be 4/12/2026. Justification for expense. Training for new Salesforce implementation. And we'll upload a receipt for Salesforce training. All right, so that's uploading there. And we'll go ahead and submit it. And we'll look at what that document processor does. So we will go in and take a look at our request. And now you can see that the formula that we set, where the name of the requester, the topic, and the amount now comes through as the title of that. And we can also see that the PDF has come through. Now, in just a minute, the processing for that document will be complete. There it is. And we'll get both a preview of what was submitted. So here's the invoice for the training that we talked about, as well as the information from that invoice directly. So this isn't pulled from the form. This is pulled from the invoice directly. I also have the capability to download the file. So this gives our approvers a real chance to see what's inside. And we also, under this hidden and generated field section, which only administrators can see, we have the ability to see the full set of data that was actually pulled. And I can take any of this data and put it into the requests by making it unhide itself. So I'm going to take a few of the things we've learned now and put them together. So we've learned about data extractors, where we can extract data from PDFs, and we've learned a little bit about calculated fields. I want to mash those two concepts together and give you an advanced example of something we can do with conditional approvals. So I'm going to go back to our field section and set up some fields. And the goal here is we want to take what the user said the expense amount was going to be. So I said it was going to be $4,000, and compare it to what's actually pulled from the invoice. So if we go into our fields section here, we're going to create a couple new calculated fields, and then we'll use those in a threshold. So down here under add fields, I'm going to add a new calculated field. And that calculated field, we're going to call matches invoice. And we're going to edit the formula so that that formula contains some of our existing fields and compares them against one another. So in this instance, I have our estimated expense amount. I can get at that by typing two brackets, and then I get an autocomplete. So estimated expense amount, that's what the user fills in. But we actually had a called final expense amount. And then we can say, does that equal to the invoice amount, the invoice total? And again, a bit of an advanced topic, but the two equal signs will perform a comparison and return true or false in this instance. So we can go ahead and save that formula. And now, and we'll also make it hidden because that's not something our user needs to see. So we'll go down in here to advanced and mark that as private. And so now the system, when it processes the files, will take what the user said the amount was going to be and what the invoice says the amount is from our AI document extraction and return true or false. And so then we can go in and we can go inside our workflow and we can say, hey, instead of Michael Scott needing to approve just when the amount's greater than $50, let's also have him check for when the invoice doesn't match what the user said it would match. Matches invoice, there it is. And that's going to be equal to false. And if matches invoice is equal to false, now Michael will also, and it's greater than $50, Michael will also get flagged for an approval. And just as a reminder, when we're looking at our workflows, you can actually see the logic of how that evaluates inside this activity log. So you'll be able to see, yep, this was true, and that's why it was triggered. So that's just a brief preview of the powerful things that you can do with calculated fields. If you're familiar with Salesforce, it's very much based on the way that Salesforce implements their calculated fields. So you can rely upon calculated fields in one another and do thresholds and do all sorts of rather complex calculations with those. We just have a few more things to look at here in the application. And one of the most exciting topics is permissions. So let's go in and look at permissions and talk through how permissions work. So inside the application, you have the capability to set users as administrators who have the ability to do anything inside the application, including billing. You have managers, you have users, you have read-only users, and then you have requesters. Let's talk about how these are different. Administrators, as I said, can do anything. Managers can't access the workspace settings. They can't access your company settings, but they can create new workflows and assign approvers and invite new approvers as well. Users have the ability to see anything that's assigned to them and make requests for anything that they have access to. So any templates they can go in and make a request for. Requesters can only do requests, and then read-only users, so they can't see anything that's in the system that they didn't request. And read-only users only have the capability to see, they can't approve or deny. That can be a little bit tricky, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And again, since we don't have any user limits, you can certainly set up some test accounts and see for yourself where you need people to be. Uh, Only a couple more topics here. Let's look under our org chart. Our org chart provides the ability to set up a hierarchy inside an organization so that you can send requests to a user's manager instead of a specific person. So let's go back to our expense pre-authorization for special projects workflow. Beginning to think I should have given that a shorter name, and we'll go into our workflow here. And let's create a new request step. And instead of selecting someone specific, we'll select requester's manager. Now, when this goes through, instead of going to a specific person, it'll look up on the org chart who the requester's manager is and send it off to that person for approval instead. Now, in this case, since I'm logged in as Michael, we'll go back and look at the org chart. Michael doesn't have a manager. So if you haven't set up the org chart, or you're dealing with someone who doesn't have someone they tier up to, that step will automatically approve. Let's see, we've talked about almost everything. The last topic, the very last one, is actually our vacation selection. Oh, and then approval hub as well. So for vacations, we have the ability to put people on vacation. This is something that the administrator can do through workplace settings. And through workplace settings, they simply add a vacation, select who is going on vacation. Let's say Jim's going out, and he's going out from the 29th through the 2nd of February. And his delegate will be, well, of course, it should be Dwight. Oh, let's just select Toby for the heck of it. And now we can see that Jim is on vacation from 129 to 23, and then his request will go to Toby. Now, during that time period, Jim can still log in and approve his own requests, but Toby also receives a copy of them and has permission to approve them as well. The second place you can manage vacation requests for non-administrators, inside your user profile, you can go in and you can add your own vacation. So go on vacation and you can say, hey, Michael is going to be out from the 30th to the 5th, and select a delegate there as well. And let's say he's delegating to, doesn't matter. Let's just say Daryl. And of course, if I go back to the administrator screen, I'll be able to see all of the vacations that people have submitted for themselves. So I'll be able to see the vacation that Jim submitted, or that we submitted on Jim's behalf, as well as the vacation that Michael submitted, and it goes to Daryl. And the last item on the workplace settings is the approval hub. Now, what is an approval hub? An approval hub is a list of all of your public forms. So all of the forms that have the public toggle switched on, which we talked about earlier in the video. So this here is the office parties form. We've clicked public form. We've also set a pin for it. And now if we go back to the settings page, we can enable the approval hub, and we can click, and this will actually live at our subdomain. So dinnermufflin.approveThis.com. And the two forms that we have public will be available here. So I can go into view and I'll be prompted for the pin, and then I'll be able to submit that form directly here inside the application without being logged in at all. So this is publicly available on the internet. Similarly, if I click the other form, which is not pin enabled, I can also fill out the customer credit request. That one doesn't have a pin, so I can just fill that one out and kick off the request again without being logged in at all. So publicly available on the internet. So if you have a lot of external requesters, the Approval Hub is a great way to consolidate everything that they might need all in one place without giving them access to any system or having to maintain a list of approval processes. And that pretty much wraps up our tour of all the features, the long tour of Prove This. We'll be uploading short videos that go more in depth on each feature individually, shorter videos, as well as a bit of a highlight reel throughout the next few weeks, and keeping this up to date as we go. Please reach out if you have any questions. The best way to get in touch is through the chat widget down at the bottom of the screen. That goes directly to our team, or through support@ApproveThis.com. We are always happy to help. Thanks so much for watching.